Time keeps on leaving and we keep on moving. When do we pass on our wisdom to the youth? My veteran story, lost arts discussions, fireside chats with a bourbon or two. It's time to hear the stories by military veterans. Get yourself ready. It's the Lost Arts Podcast. The Lost Arts with Andrew Cox. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art Podcast, that podcast that gives a voice to our veterans. On today's episode, we have Marine veteran Michael McNany, which I'm sure all of you are well aware since you listen to the Fireside Chats. He's one of the regulars on the Fireside Chat, but today he's going to tell his veteran story. But before we get into the show, are you enjoying the podcast? Consider becoming a TLA patron. That's a Lost Arts patron, where you can give a monthly donation. It is through donations that we are able to continue recording the podcast and getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Just go to the Lost Art website and click on the Become a Patron link at the top. If becoming a TLA patron doesn't work for you and you would rather give a one-time donation, then go to the Lost Art website and scroll down until you see the donations link. Any donation is appreciated. And if you'd like to be a guest on the show, then email me directly at thelostartwithandrewcox@gmail.com. That's thelostartwithandrewcox@gmail.com. And as always, we do have merchandise for sale. So if you go to our website, click on that merchandise tab, and you will definitely find you some goodies there. Got hats, got shirts, got all kinds of stuff. So if you want to support the podcast, go there and buy some merchandise. All right, with that, we got Mike McNany here. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing fantastic. Maybe this Wi-Fi will work for us here. Maybe we'll figure it out eventually. But hey, I'm excited for you to come on here and tell your veteran story. So let's start at the beginning for you. Where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about that, and then what drew you to military service.
I grew up in a small town in Franklin, Pennsylvania. What are you laughing at? I see you laughing at me.
I'm just laughing about our Wi-Fi.
Take six. I know. For those of you who don't know, this is like the fourth time we've done this. So, but anyways, I grew up
well rehearsed.
I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, Franklin, Pennsylvania, Venango County, south of Erie, north of Pittsburgh. There wasn't a whole lot of opportunity in that area. You either went to the local steel refinery, you went and worked for the coal mining manufacturer. And I had an older sister who's 13 years older than I, and she went to college. She became a pharmacist. She's still a pharmacist. Wants to retire, but, really can't afford to retire. But I remember watching my parents suffer, and not suffer, but, struggle. My mother worked, my dad worked. My mother worked for the coal mining manufacturer, Joy Manufacturing, and my dad was a camera film developer for a newspaper plant, the local newspaper. And
Nice.
That was an apprenticeship trade that he had learned as graduating from high school. He was the one that used to develop, reporters went out and took pictures and all that. When they brought it back, he developed the film. And it's not like today where they could just digitally download it. They had to put it, to be able to print it on the paper presses, they had to be superimposed on these big metal steel plates.
Yeah.
And it went into it was almost like pixel mode. It was nothing but dots, but it formed a picture like an old not MS, but dot matrix printer.
Yeah.
And that's how,
really cool.
Yeah, they had to develop it on that. And that's what he did his whole life till he retired. But there really, in that area, there wasn't much. He either went to college, and it seemed like anybody even older than me that went to college came back and did nothing.
Yeah.
The economy was bad, especially me being born in 1973, the 70s and early 80s, and even into the mid 80s. So I, going into high school, I think it was my sixth grade year, started in band. And was a, I was like, told my mother, I was like, she worked days, my dad worked nights. And I was like, oh, by the way, we gotta go to the school tonight for band. And I didn't bother to say anything, like a typical kid. And I started band at that point as a clarinet player. But the big thing for me was even in that in middle school, and I think it was my eighth grade year, uh, in our we had, the town park, they had a pavilion, and there was a strictly volunteer band that played during the summer, and they would do parades, 4th of July, stuff like that. It was called the Silver Cornet Band, but they're, as far as I know, still the oldest, they would be still the oldest volunteer band in the country.
Wow. That's really
And
cool.
I remember seeing them. We go down in the park in the summers every other Thursday night and watch them. And all of a sudden, the one week they were supposed to play, they said they weren't going to play. Well, it was Marine Corps band was playing in the park that week.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I want to say it was Paris Island. I swear it was Paris Island, but I'm not sure how they could have after the fact, thinking with recruit grads and stuff like that. So it may have been Quantico. It could have been, Cherry Point,
Right.
Lejeune, one of those. But I remember sitting there watching them all come out and seeing them all in their uniforms. And I was like, that was like, and I had seen, I grew up, was never allowed to watch anything. We had cable, but it was limited cable. Before that, it was, the bunny ears watching stuff, and it was John Wayne, or we finally got cable on a Sunday afternoon. It was, Wild Wild West, or, something like that. But I remember seeing, John Wayne and, Marine movies and, stuff like that. And I was like, oh man, that's cool. And when I finally saw Marines in uniform, I remember sitting there with my mother and I was like, that's what I want to be.
Were they in their the dress blues?
No, they were in Deltas, but
Okay.
I just remember thinking, they were in Deltas, or I don't know, what do you guys still call it, Deltas?
Yeah, it's still
Sure,
Deltas.
yeah. And I remember just sitting there and I'm like, that's what I want to do. And she goes, no, you're not. I was like, okay. So went into high school and still didn't know what I wanted to do. And probably my junior year in high school, I really kept leaning towards it. And then at that point, you're really supposed to start visiting colleges and sending out stuff and seeing things, going here. So we went here, we went there. It was everywhere my parents wanted me to go. A local college called Grove City College in Grove City, Pennsylvania, and Erie and Barron and Pitt, where my sister went, University of Pittsburgh, and Penn State. Everybody knows Penn State. And I was just like, but I had watched my parents just, bust their tails. And my dad, my mother, like I said, my mother worked days. My dad worked the night shift for the newspaper to put out the morning newspaper. And he would go in at 5. He had to be there at 6. And he would get off at, depending on what kind of night it was, between 2 and 3. And he would leave there and he would work janitorial jobs, cleaning office buildings and stuff.
Wow. So
and yeah. And I remember sitting there watching him with my sister in the 80s. My sister graduated high school in 1979. So she went into, college in the early 80s when the economy was terrible, or layoffs, and especially in that area. But I was like, I don't want to owe my parents anything. I don't want to do this. I don't know what I want to do. And when I finally told my dad, and my dad had this hit or miss relationship when I was a kid. And it wasn't until I was 30 years old, got back from Iraq the first time, all of a sudden he and I could talk about anything. Before that, it was just, no, I'm not saying he was a bad person. It was a terrible father. It was just, he was grew up in that generation. How I was taught to be is kids are meant to be seen, not heard.
Yeah.
So I didn't have I was never allowed to go anywhere, as I had friends in school, and all of a sudden you got out of, school ended for the summer, and it's like, I got nothing.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got into high school and finally was able to drive and that I had more interaction with people. But I kept saying I want to be a Marine, and my mother's like, well, that's not what you're going to do. You're going to go to college. I'm like, I don't want to go to college. It wasn't a matter of not wanting to. It was I did, but I didn't. And I was afraid to fail at college, and I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do.
Right.
I honestly just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was like, okay, well, I'll be a pharmacist like my sister, which I did not want to be. But, I did okay in school. I wasn't on the lower end of grades, but the older I got, the less I cared, just like a lot of us. But that day I saw those Marines up there, and it was the band. And I was like, that's what I want to do. And it wasn't even necessarily being a band. It was just, I want to be a Marine.
Yeah.
But my senior in high school, it's when I finally said, this is what I want to do. And my mother told me, she said, if you do this, I'll never support you in anything you do.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, well, this is what I want to do. So, and it was something she said to try to deter me from joining the Marine Corps. She meant it, but she kind of got over it.
It
but I remember talking to my dad about it, being like, he and I just didn't, we hunted and fished, but we didn't have that relationship where I could be like, hey, Dad, can I talk to you about something? If we did, I didn't know how to approach him, and he didn't know how to say, hey, son, come on, let's, talk.
Yeah.
But, I didn't realize I started to realize a little more, I guess, in my junior year. But it was when I finally said, this is what I want to do. And he and I went for a walk in the woods, and I told him that. And I said, but, Mom, and he goes, well, I'll be honest with you, Mike. He said, you need to be true to yourself and do what you want to do. He said, do I want you to do this? No. He said, but my parents didn't want me to be a composing room person for, the newspaper and that. But he said, I did it. My grandfather was a master carpenter. And, that was one thing that he always wanted me. He's like, well, you need to be like your grandfather. But I was like, well, I like doing it, but it's not what I want to do,
Yeah.
So at that point, I graduated high school in 1992. And August of 92, left for the Marine Corps.
Nice. And did you audition for the band?
Well, yeah, I kind of skipped over that when I initially enlisted, and I went into radio communications.
Okay.
Which what that means.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to go to the comm school on 29 Palms and learn how to haul a radio around in an infantry unit.
Yep.
Maybe not necessarily like that, but the way it was talked to me is like, oh no, this is communications is an ever developing field, and this is the growth for the opportunity for growth and potential and promotion is just through the roof. And I'm like, sign me up. And all of a sudden out of nowhere, the recruiter is Corporal Chester. He calls the house one day, and my dad's like, hey, your Chester's on the phone. And I was like, all right. Got on the phone. He goes, hey, I got bad news. I was like, what's that? He goes, that MOS is closed. You got to pick another one.
Wow.
I'm like, well, I don't know what. I mean, I don't know. He goes, well, I'm going to tell you what, if it was me and this is what I did, man, this is the greatest job in the Marine Corps. You'd be a mortar man.
Yeah, buddy.
I was like, okay. He goes, man, you get to blow crap up and this and that. And I was like, hey, great, even better. So I was, it was a delayed entry program at that point, as a went from radio communications to a mortarman. I'm like, oh, great, here I go. Then all of a sudden one day, Chester got fired because he was messing with pulleys. And all of a sudden I got another one. Sergeant Blanchard calls me. Hey, I'm your new recruiter. I need all the pulleys to be at the office this Saturday. We're going to do a IST and we're going to run and all this and that. It was done. And he goes, hey, I need to talk to you. I went in and he goes, yeah, why didn't you say anything? I said, say what? He said, don't lie to me. Don't play this game with me. And I was like, I don't know why, what? You didn't tell me you were in the band. I'm like, I've never met you. So how would I have told you that I'm in the band? Well, you never told anybody else you were in the band. You played an instrument. I was like, well, yeah. I want you to meet somebody, And he set up a date like 2 weeks from then to go down to Pittsburgh. And he goes, you're going to meet somebody. Bring your instrument. You go down there. And we talked about it, I think, in the fireside chat. And I can't remember his name now. He was the band officer for Paris Island. But all of a sudden I walk in and he's like, you here for an audition? I'm like, I don't know what I'm here for. I was just told to bring my instrument. He goes, well, put it together and play the damn thing. I'm like, okay. You know your scales? I'm like, well, yeah, I know some. And he had me kind of sight read some stuff. And he goes, well, guess what? You're in. You made it in the band. You're in the band. I was like, okay. What does that mean? He goes, man, the band's the greatest job in the Marine Corps. And I looked at him and I remember plain as day saying, yeah, I was told the last 2 jobs I was supposed to have in the Marine Corps were the best jobs in the Marine Corps. Now, this is the best job. He goes, oh, we got a new program out. It's promotions. And, at the time, I didn't know what it was called, but it was a MEOP program, going in the band field. And he goes, this is what you're going to do. I was like, okay. I walk out of there and Blanchard went in and was talking to him and was a master sergeant and sergeant major there for the recruiting district. And they all come back and they're like, hell yeah, you're in the band now. And I remember hearing them talking, walking down the hallway. They're like, man, we made mission for the next 2 months. Man, we don't have to sign. And I was like, and I didn't realize what enlisting a bandsman what meant, to recruiters.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, well, I'm in the band now. And I remember going back and telling my band director, he goes, I said, yeah, I made it in the Marine Corps band. And he goes, no, you didn't. I said, yeah, I did. He goes, no, you didn't. I said, yeah, I did. And he goes, there's no damn way you made it into the Marine Corps band. He said, you're good, but you did not make it into the Marine Corps band. I said, okay, we'll just wait and see, and I didn't know who the president's own was or the commandant's own or none of that at the time. I was like, you just wait and see. Then I found out, but
that's good stuff. Oh man. So you finished the audition, you made it, and now you're going to ship off to boot camp, right?
Yes.
How was boot camp for you?
Well, I went to Paris Island. I was 3rd Battalion, 3104, Paris Island, South Carolina. And boot camp, for me, it was a physical aspect for me. I mean, I wasn't out of shape by any means, but I had played a little football, not much in high school. I was always out in the woods and that, but I wasn't out running every day. And it was, the physical aspect caught up to me real quick. But, it's just probably like any recruit, even that you dealt with,
Yeah.
it's,
I would say the majority struggle with that.
Yeah. But it was more the mental aspect for me of dealing with, I had never experienced anything like that, which is kind of the point.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true.
And it was funny because I remember, I don't know what was we did our initial PFT in that, and I passed it.
Right.
And I remember, but I passed it, but it wasn't by much. But I passed it, and I remember the senior drill instructor, Staff Sergeant Andershak, calling me in, and he's, all of a sudden I got, Recruit McNany, go see senior drill instructor. Oh, and I go down there banging on the hatch, and he goes, McNany, you failed the PFT. And I was told, I'm like, sir, this recruit was told he passed. He goes, my eyes, you failed it. Drop your ass. I'm going to drop you, and he was a Desert Storm infantry guy and all that. And, so he was, all through recruit training, he was constantly talking until we got to the end and then showing pictures of, Kuwait, and Desert Storm and stuff like that. But, to all of us, he was a war hero, And he goes, as far as I'm concerned, you don't belong in my Marine Corps. I'm like, sir, this recruit, he's like, I'm going to drop your ass. Give me one reason why I shouldn't drop your ass right now. And I was like, sir, this recruit would rather die in boot camp than go home, sir.
Very nice.
He goes, fucking die then. And it was like, sir, yes, sir. Yeah. But you better fucking die then.
That's good stuff right there. Oh, man. There's nothing like recruit training, I gotta say.
No. Well, I can only imagine, I know how, how it was as a recruit. I know how it was as a recruit. Any Marine that was ever in the Marine Corps knows how it was as a recruit. How exhausting, how tiring, how emotionally tolling and taxing and mentally and physically and as far as sleep deprivation. But I can only imagine what it was even like for you as a drill instructor, man. And even having heard some of your stories, I'm like, good Lord, man. You guys were above and beyond mortality as far as a recruit sees. How you guys do it? I'm like, holy crapes.
I don't know how I did it. I went from almost 200 pounds. I was 150 pounds by the end of my second cycle.
I can only imagine.
I ate one time a day. I was constantly moving. So, yeah, it was bad. I mean, it was good in the long run. It was a good experience.
Yeah, after the fact, it's like anything.
Yeah, while you're living it, not so much.
Yeah,
you look back and you think about it. Oh yeah, that was cool. Yeah. That was cool. But no, anyway.
Yeah, but would you change any of it?
No. That's the reason that I got promoted to staff sergeant, promoted to gunny as quickly as I did.
Yeah.
That. So no, I wouldn't have changed it.
Yeah.
So did your boot camp experience, did anything crazy happen while you were there, or is pretty normal?
I mean, as far as I would say it was normal, but I don't know, talking with other people, their experiences in that. I think in our platoon, we had 4 or 5 people tried to kill themselves.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. We had one kid, I can't even remember his name now, but he, they just kept riding him, and this was not to say that, it was the old Corps, because it wasn't the old Corps, but it, every generation said, well, when I went through, but, it was just never ending. His parents had sent him a whole huge ass box of cookies. And the drill instructor literally got it and opened it up. He goes, "Oh, God, I can't remember his name now to save my life, but got some cookies." And everybody's like, "Oh, we're getting cookies," and they called us up there to school, got up there and we're all sitting on the floor and he just sitting there taking these cookies and he's taking one by one and crinkling them up into the trash can, and he takes a box and throws it in the can. He goes, "There's the cookies." So everybody went to bed. It was after everybody had shit showered, shaved, and all that. And everybody's in the rack. And all of a sudden you hear the fire watch just screaming. And the drill instructor comes out. And everybody's out of the rack. And this kid's laying on the floor, just howling and screaming. And
wow.
He was like, "What the hell is wrong with you?" He goes, "This kid couldn't have his cookies, so he took all of his ibuprofen, sir."
Oh, God.
Because he'd had his wisdom teeth or whatever pulled out. And so whatever Motrin he had, I don't know. And he just downed it all. So
that's good.
He tried to off himself. So they drug him out there that night. They came and got him. Everybody's back in the rack. Next thing I know, drill instructor's out just yelling, throwing a trash can, cookies flying everywhere because the trash hadn't gone out yet. Well, another recruit went up there and decided he's going to start digging in a trash can and eat the crumbs out of the trash can. These cookies, And the next day, it was like 2 days later, he tried to hang himself with his web belt, but he tied a loose knot, was sitting there like with his feet propped up, holding himself up till somebody saw him and claimed he was trying to kill himself. Because then when they asked him why, he said, "Because I didn't get any of those cookies." It was like, so all of a sudden, the senior drill instructor started yelling, "This is a goddamn cookie platoon, goddamn cookie platoon. I swear to," just going off. So at that point in time, if anything came in, it got opened up. We didn't get to see it. I don't even know if they can do that now. But
when I was a senior, I told them that, hey, don't let your parents send anything.
Yeah.
Of course, it always happens. Somebody sent something.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I'd have them, whoever recruit got it, I'd be like, "All right, stay on the quarterdeck. It's yours. Go ahead and eat it." "Well, we got it for the whole platoon." "No, that's not how it works. It's yours. You eat it, or either you throw it in the trash. It's yours. Either one of those options." So I had some sit there and try to eat it, and of course it didn't go well for them. The majority just threw it in the trash, though.
Yeah.
So, and I never let them have anything. Like when I was a senior, how some seniors let them, they'll have snacks and they'll have movie time and all kinds. I didn't do anything.
No, we never had any of that. We never had any of that till the week before we graduated.
Wow.
And it was finally, the senior drill instructor came in. He goes, "Everybody up here, just sit down." And he was having at that point, talks like, "Okay, you guys are going to be Marines soon," talking about the fleet and this and that. And, he wheeled, it was like you're back in school. He wheeled in the cart with the TV and a VCR. And we're like, "Oh my God, we're going to see. What are we going to watch? What is it?" And he goes, "Right now, we're going to watch the best movie that has ever been made. And I'm going to let you watch it." Sticks it in. It was Full Metal Jacket, and the whole time, he's sitting there and we're all like, we got our canteens, we're like, we're drinking and, having a heck of a day. But, as far as boot camp experience, I mean, I think back at it now and I was like, I wouldn't give it up, but could I go back and do it? I don't know. If I knew what I knew now, but it's,
I'd never go back and do it again.
Yeah.
I wouldn't change it, but I wouldn't go back and do it again.
Yeah. But it's funny, even then, your drill instructors, you remember them forever, who they were. And when I got to my first duty station, I actually ran in to one of the drill instructors. He was the heavy. Well, he was more of the training. I had senior drill instructor, and we only had three. It was senior drill instructor. He was Staff Sergeant Andershack. The next one, he was kind of like the lunatic. I don't know what you would call him, the heavy, but he was just, he was unhinged on a daily damn basis. But, Staff Sergeant Rutan and then Sergeant Taylor is the one that taught us drill, taught us, basically everything. And all Rutan did was run around going like this all the time, But I ran into Sergeant Taylor. We're in Barstow.
Okay.
And he was a staff sergeant. And I remember hearing his voice, and I'm like, that's freaking Sergeant Taylor. And it was after the fact, and the ceremony was done, and we were standing there, and he comes walking over, and he goes, McNany. And I stopped. I was like, holy crap. And he looked at me and goes, Jesus, Marine. He goes, freaking Lance Corporal, what the hell are you acting like that for? And I was like, oh, yes, sir. He goes, I ain't no damn sir. I was still traumatized, But the impact they make on you is unbelievable. And I mean, that's probably something you've heard back from even recruits you've had.
Yeah,
but
that's true. I still remember my drill instructors, senior drill instructor Staff Ross, drill instructor Staff Sergeant Rudisell, drill instructor Staff Sergeant McWilliams, and then I also had drill instructor Staff Sergeant Lopez, but he was kind of in and out. But he was the one. He was the one that when I was I was doing mountain climbers in the sand, and he was up front conducting like it was an orchestra, and I looked up. And I just started laughing, and he, oh, you think that's funny, Cox? Yes, sir. And he's like, this is music to my ears. So he was a goofy dude.
Yeah. Yeah, Rutan would he was a Desert Storm vet too, but he, in Parris Island there's sand fleas.
Yeah.
San Diego has the mountains and hills, and we had the swamp and the sand fleas, but you'd be standing there, they'd be on you, just chomping on you in your arms, and that was the one thing they told us is like, you got anybody back home wants to send you something, make sure it's it's Avon Skin So Soft,
Oh, okay.
And they'd open that up and like, we got Skin So Soft, and they'd put it in spray bottles, and they'd walk around and give you like a squirt, and just like, it was like you were putting cologne on, shoot in the air and run through it real quick. It wasn't enough to do anything. But, if you saw the drill instructors, you're like, doing this, back of their necks and all that crap, But, the sand fleas would kind of land in it, and it would make them a little bit immobile if you had enough on you, so they couldn't chomp down on you. But it's like, a mosquito on steroids just chomping on you. And I remember us doing drill, and Taylor's out there. We're doing drill, and we'd stop, and Rutan would be running through and correcting rifles. And, I wore glasses. I wear contacts now, but, I had the old BCGs on. And I'm standing there. And my rifle wasn't quite where it was supposed to be. And, that was rifles with a front side post and all that for, when we had, iron sights. And he comes walking up and jabs that rifle into me and cracked me right here in my glasses, the front sight post did, and tore up my nose, and I got blood running down my face, and all that stuff. But he'd be out there in the sand fleas. He goes, let them eat. My sand flies got to eat. My sand flies got to eat. They got to eat. You let them eat, damn it. And he'd be standing there, and he'd pick his arm up. He would just go like that. He'd lick sand fleas off his arm and just stand there. They got to eat, so I got to eat too, and stuff like that. We're like, sir, yes, sir.
That's a pretty good one. I never heard that.
Yeah. He's like, let them eat. They got to eat. They got to eat because I got to eat. I was like, yeah, yes, sir, yes, sir. He's hard.
What a psycho.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh man. So you did your time at boot camp, then off to MCT. And when you were at MCT, now did you get to shoot the heavy guns and then throw grenades and stuff?
We did at MCT. Yeah, we shot 50 cals, Mark 19s. Uh, it was because my understanding has changed. I don't know if it's still the same way, but we had it was 2 months. It was 10 weeks at MCT.
It was
I don't
10
know what
weeks.
it.
Wow.
Yeah,
I think it's
it was weird because we graduated
three.
in time for Thanksgiving. When I graduated boot camp, we got to go home, and it was only a week, and we had to be back.
Wow.
And then to go to MCT, and I don't know why because they kept saying ours was different than everybody else's, but I made I don't why I don't know.
That's interesting.
So,
I have to look
but
that
yeah,
up somehow.
we did the heavy guns, Mark 19, 50 cal. At the time not the 240, but the 60, and all that grenade range. Hell, we were in the field, I think, for 2 weeks at that point.
Wow. Yeah, we I don't think it's that long now. I think it's maybe 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. I don't even know. I haven't even paid attention. I'm sure somebody out there knows.
Yeah. But yeah, from MCT, of course, they were, calling everything out to everybody. And that was the same way in boot camp. It's you start getting fitted for uniforms, and all of a sudden, there was a handful, the band as a guaranteed PFC was blues. I don't know, does everybody graduate with blues now, or?
I believe everybody it's a issue item, if I'm not mistaken. Now.
Yeah. But they, of course, they made an issue out of that. Oh, my band guy here, my band guy, Then MCT was the same way, but from MCT went to the good old School of Music in Norfolk or Little Creek, Virginia.
Yeah. So that was a good time. So how was your experience there?
Not good at all. I did not have a good time at the School of Music.
So
I say that in the sense that I could play my instrument, and if you put something down, I could play it. But I had no background in theory. I had no background in ear training. And it wasn't a matter of my high school band director not knowing that, because he knew it greatly. He attempted to teach me, but I attempted to not want to learn it. And then learn extremely the hard way what he had tried to teach me. And the School of Music, depending on when you get there, you class up and all that. At least when I was there, was minimum of 6 months, unless you excelled out or you were extremely proficient. I don't know what it is now, but
it's about the same. I think total with like pickup week and all that stuff, it's close to 7 months total.
Yeah. Well, see, that was the thing with us, is my group got there in January, and then we didn't class up for like 2.5 months.
Wow.
We literally sat there weed whacking and, painting parking lot lines and whatever working party the base needed, where they sent us out on. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, we got a class, let's go. So we got there, and it was January, I think it was January 1st of 2000, not 2000, 93.
Okay.
And we didn't start class until March.
Wow.
Which meant, our class would have graduated in August, September timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a handful of my class that excelled out and left, but I was just lost, you know. And I didn't know, I don't claim to be the smartest human being on the face of the planet, but I can learn if you can teach me. And I can comprehend things, and I did understand music, but there was a lot of, well, you were supposed to come here already knowing this stuff. And I'm like, I don't. And I would go ask for help, and they're like, so sad,
Oh, wow.
and I got through ear training and theory. I was able to get through it, but even my biggest problem outside of that was, you had weekly lessons, and I would go play and do this and do my practice or IPs or whatever the heck we called them, and
Yeah.
sit there and uh, went for my F1, just barely passed it, and then my F2 took me 3 times to finally pass it.
Yeah.
And
Did they,
after the second one, they're
they
like,
get,
"Yeah, huh?"
sorry, did that hold you back, or were you able to do it before the grad date?
No, I wasn't able to graduate with everybody else. Yeah, I was 3 classes later.
Yeah.
I had passed everything else, and that was actually the one thing is they're like, "Well, you got to take your F2 again. You're not going to graduate with this class." But there was another class that was going to graduate in like a month or 2 to 3 weeks, roughly, that time frame to a month. And they're like, you can take it then. So I sat in those damn practice rooms just running scales and prepared
Oh,
piece. And
God.
then all of a sudden my instructor was an Army instructor, Staff Sergeant Ross, clarinet player, great clarinet player. He's like, I got an idea, McNany. We're going to change your solo. Like, what do you mean? And he goes, I don't want you to play that solo. You're going to play another solo. And I'm like, I've got a week and a half. He goes, oh, you got this. You got time. You got time. So I start practicing it, going to second F2, and they're like, no. And literally it was chief. I can't remember. He was a chief. He goes, this isn't the solo that was on the record for you to play. I'm like, well, Staff Sergeant Ross, chief, one of me. He goes, why the hell did you change? I was like, because he wanted me to change. He goes, well, you failed.
Oh, man.
So then they made me go through theory and ear training again, my third time.
Wow.
And, I didn't have to go through the whole course, but they wanted me to go through like an abbreviated course of it again, because they said they couldn't justify me still being at the School of Music and just practicing.
Mm-hmm.
So, which I get, but I did all that, and this was going into December of '93 at that point, and it was Master Chief Sherini. He was
Okay.
the Master Chief, and there was Senior Chief Chief LaQuay, and Senior Chief Lakita was like the head of rehearsal division, and
Okay.
Master Chief Sherini I believe, was the head of curriculum, maybe. I don't know what you would call it.
Yeah.
I don't
Academic
remember
or
now.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but I sat in the rehearsal that my F2 for the third time, and I walked out, and Master Chief Sherini came out, and he goes, "How do you think you did?" I said, "I think I did okay, Master Chief, but I don't really feel that I did all that great. I'm just at this point where," he goes, "Well, what do you want to do?" is the band what you want to do? Is this what you want? And I was like, well, yes, Master Chief. He goes, what's the passing score out of the school? Is it a 2.9, 2.8? Well, I mean, I'm asking you, AJ.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought he was asking you that. No.
No.
Well, the equivalent, they've changed the scoring, but was a 2.7 if I'm not mistaken for the basic
What
course.
Did you? Yeah, 2.7. And he said, well, I graded you yeah, that's right, a 2.7. I was thinking 2.8, but a 2.7. He said, I graded you at a 2.7 too. He said, but everybody else, he said, but the other two graded you at a 2.68 and a 2.69. I was like, well, what does that mean? Did I pass? And he was like, yes and no. I was like, so, I mean, literally, this is going into the week of Christmas that year. And I'm like, what does this mean? And he's like, come up to my office. So we go upstairs, across from the Marine Element office over there. And I'm sitting in a chair out there in the hallway, and he goes in and he comes walking out with, all the sheets, everybody's sheets. And he goes to Chief LeQuay, and I can hear them talking. And she goes, as far as I'm concerned, he passed. If you put something in front of him, he'll play it. He just has, I remember her saying this, he has audition anxiety. Just when he goes in, it's like, she goes, I can't take tests. That's why I'm only a damn chief. Because they have to, in the Navy, you have to test.
That's right.
And she goes, he just has audition anxiety. She said, I know he can play. I've heard him play. And I don't, even to this day, even when I was even in the band field in the Marine Corps, I don't claim to be a virtuoso. I wasn't a first, principal first chair player or anything like that. But if you put it in front of me, give me a day or so and I'll play it. I mean, I'll play it. I'll memorize this. I'll do that. So he went from there to senior chief, the other senior chief. I just said his name and now my mind went blank. Was Chief Lakita, Senior Chief Lakita.
Yeah.
And he went to him, and they're literally down the hall and around the turn. And, by the rehearsal halls on the far end. And I hear Master Chief Serini goes, what the hell do you mean you don't know who the hell McNany is? And he comes walking back out, and Lakita's falling behind him. And he goes, who the hell is McNany? I don't know who the hell McNany is. And Master Chief Serini looks at me, points right, that would be McNany right there, like that. He goes, oh, him. Yeah, he passed. Master Chief Serini looks at him. He's got all my paperwork. He's just sitting there doing this, balls it all up, and he goes, pack your shit up and get the hell out of here. You pass. Go the hell home. Merry Christmas. And I was like, yeah, Master Chief Serini is probably one of the nicest, calmest talking human beings you would ever meet. And he lives out in Bakersfield, California. And I haven't talked to him in several years, and I owe him a lot. But he is probably one of the calmest talking people, just nicest people. He was a oboe or bassoon player, but, unbelievable human being. Master Chief, how he handled people, never yelled, nothing. And I will never forget that day. He was just, who the hell do you mean? Just, that would be him right there, just screaming. He's got it all balled up, like he was supposed to hand it all to me. And, hey, here's your stuff, so you have it. And I got it in this ball. It looked like, somebody got mad and rolled up a ball of aluminum foil. And, here, go pack your shit up. And I was like, yes, Master Chief. Of course, I'm running down the hall. I've grabbed all my crap, and I'm like, what do I need to do next? And Master Gunny Eccles walks out of Marine element. He goes, "Where the hell do you think you're going?" I'm like, and turn
I'm
around. I was
packing
like,
my
"That's
shit and
good."
going home.
He was Gunny Eccles at the time, and I was like, "Gunny." He goes, "PFC." Yeah, I was a Lance Corporal at the time. He goes, "Lance Corporal." I'm like, "Gunny." He goes, "Lance Corporal." I'm like, oh, again, I don't know what the hell's going on here. And I go running back. It was Gunny Eccles, Master Gunnery Sergeant Covington was a senior enlisted, and
Wow.
Captain Trone.
Yeah.
And I go running back there, and he goes, "Are you done?" And I was like, Gunnery Sergeant. He goes, "Are you done?" I was like, "Yes, Gunnery Sergeant. I passed. I get to leave." He goes, "No." He looked at me. He goes, "No. Are you done being stupid? Where the hell do you think you going?" He said, "You walk from there. You come over to here." And I'm like, "Yes, Gunnery Sergeant."
You're just a little on the excited side. Didn't know what
Oh
to do.
yeah, I was like, I gotta get my stuff packed up. I gotta get all my stuff in my sea bag. I got,
You took it literal.
yeah.
Well, after you packed all your shit, where did you go next? From where?
Well, from there, went from the good old 29 Palms, California, Marine Corps Air Ground Combat Center.
That's right. Yeah, it's a wonderful place.
Yeah.
So talk to me about your experience in the Big 29.
Well, I got there and it was January 1st of 94. Of course, the band was gone on leave. Well, they had just done the Rose Parade. And of course, then they got back and were on leave. So I sat in some random barracks room for like 2 weeks. And I was like, "Well,
Just
I'm with the
waiting.
band." Yeah, and nobody knew what to do with me. Even they knew I was in a band, but they had no clue. And all
Wow.
of a sudden, I was like, 2 weeks went by, and I'm going to company, and I'm again polishing stones and emptying trash cans and sweeping the hallway, barracks and all kinds of crap. And I walked out of the barracks room one morning, and it was one of the guys I was at the school of music with.
Oh,
And it
nice.
was a
Okay.
lot of those guys, and that was the one thing with that band. Like the group that they had sent out there was the group to replace the Marines that had replaced the Drum and Bugle Corps at
Mm,
29 Palms.
yeah.
And even when they sent that group of Marines out there as a band, they were still contemplating every year. Was like, yeah, we're getting rid of 29 Palms, we're getting rid of 29 Palms, and that was a disgruntled bunch of human beings right there. I mean, I
Yeah.
loved every one of them to death, but man, they hated everything about them. They hated that life. They hated everything there was. And
Wow.
the group that I was with at the School of Music, I ran into Jimmy Pearson, and I was like, "Jimmy," and he turned around and looked at me and goes, "Hey, man, what the hell are you doing here? Where the hell have you been? Everybody's been asking where the hell you been." I was like, "Well, I've been here." And I was like, "Well, where do I go?" And he goes, "I don't know." And he just took off. And like 2 hours later, all of a sudden I hear, I'm in the barracks room, nobody in the barracks. I'm just sitting there like nobody knows who the hell I am. Nobody knows what to do with me. And I go open the door, and it was Sergeant Carroll from the band. He goes, "Are you Lance Corporal McNany?" And I was like, "Yes, Sergeant." "Why the hell are you in here?" "Because this is where I was told to go." "Get all your crap. Let's, they he threw all my stuff in his truck, go to the band hall, and then they're like, "Well, where are you staying?" I'm like, "Well, I don't have a room now, apparently." I don't know where I'm staying. And here the band was in the next barracks over, and I didn't know that. Hell, I hadn't even, other than Only play. I didn't even know where at that time. I didn't even know where the hell a chow hall was because nobody would tell me. All I knew was the top of the hill up there in the corner was the bowling alley, which had a restaurant in it. You get burgers and fries, and so
Yeah.
I would walk up there every day and eat.
Wow.
But
And they
I
really took
started.
care of
Oh yeah, it was headquarters battalion at its best at 29 poems at that point. But yeah,
That sounds about right. Yeah. So now 29 Palms, because I got to venture out there as well, but you were there a little before my time. We traveled all over the place. I mean, that was one traveling band. I don't know if I've ever been in a band that traveled that much.
yeah.
Was it the same when you were there?
We did a lot. We did everything. Base ceremonies. We covered a lot for San Diego. We covered for either Pendleton, Miramar. We did Mardi Gras. We did. We even went up to Washington State. Did change of commands up there, and I want to say it's Bangor, but I don't. I keep thinking Bangor, Maine, but I think it's Bangor, Washington. It's like a sub base. We did change of commands up there. We did the Oregon State Fair.
So yeah, you've definitely traveled.
We did a lot of we did.
Nice. Now, who
a lot of those jobs, a lot of those guys met their wives and stuff like that
on the trips?
Not necessarily married still, but they met their wives, and
Makes sense. Yeah. So I'm sure it's still the same way. I'm sure there's those out there still doing it that way, but that's okay. So what were some of the big events and the big things in 29 Palms that you remember that you're like the impactful moments for you?
Impactful?
Sure. Or funny or whatever. Just moments that you remember that you look back on either fondly or with hate. One of the two.
Well, I really don't know how to answer that. There's a lot of things, a lot of ways I want to answer every question, everything you just said, but I don't want to be that negative person. Somebody recently told me that, just because you didn't get along with them then doesn't mean they're not good people. I'm like, yeah, okay. But no, one big thing, and I was never a part of it because I was a clarinet player, but 29 Palms had like at least for the West Coast, had like the premier show band.
Oh yeah.
We did under Gunnery Sergeant Peavy. And he had served under the what was it? Good Lord. Who was the infamous band officer in the band field on the East Coast? It was the I can't remember his name. But show band was the way.
Yeah.
Peavy
is works on Little Creek. He's like the highest civilian works
director.
Is he? Yeah, works under the captain for the base.
Yeah. Yeah, I had for the longest time I had with Ken Peavy, I had absolute hate relationship with him.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was his demand for excellence. I mean, it's going to be this way, or you can find another MOS. And, there was a lot of animosity. Not, it wasn't just me, but the band itself felt that way because a lot of the band, like I said, was the replacements that we were replacing. And they're like, we don't want to be here. We hate this place. We don't want to do this. And when I got there, Chief One Officer at E-Step was the band officer. Who the hell was the drum major? I don't remember who the drum major was. He left, and then Staff Sergeant Scott, who I believe got promoted to Gunnery Sergeant Scott, became a drum. Well, it was Dan Conley, Master Sergeant Conley. Gunny Conley at the time was a drum major, and then Staff Sergeant Scott was kind of the acting. But Gunny Peavy came in to be the enlisted band leader, and he demanded excellence. I mean, we go out and do a change command, and if one person in the whole entire band screwed up something in it, we get back at 5 o'clock. We're rehearsing.
Yeah,
we'd be there till 8 or 9 o'clock rehearsing. But at the time, I'm like, why the hell? Why would you do this? Why are you just going to sit here? And I get perfection, and we need to do this, we need to do that. But it took me a little bit of time to finally realize that he made himself the bad guy. He made himself the one to be hated.
Yeah.
That got the excellence out of everybody, and got the teamwork we all had a common bond, and we're like, we hate him. We absolutely hate him. And we would just push and push and push. Like, we're not giving him a damn reason. We're not doing this. And it would make it even worse if we get back. He'd literally walk in and he'd be like, McNany, play the second line to Stars and Stripes. And the whole band's just like, God, please just play it. Just please play it. Just please play it. Or something like that. You'd play it. And, he'd be like, okay. Everybody go home, And I don't know that that was necessarily his end game, but it made me realize that sometimes a unit like that has to have a common enemy, and it sounds terrible.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to say it other than he chose to be that person that the unit came together over. And the unit, I mean, I'll be honest with you, the unit hated him. Did he deserve it? Probably not.
Yeah.
And I was actually at the sergeant's course. I got promoted to sergeant after 4 years. Let me let you know that. even as a MEOP Marine, I had a hash mark. And I walked into sergeant's course before I continue that conversation. They're like, "You're in a band?" I was like, "Yeah." They're like, "How the hell do you have a hash mark?" And I was like, "Because I do." But I was I was married at that point, and I was at the sergeant's course, and Gunny Peavy was checking out. So he was in temporary lodging over there. And we got done that day, and I literally left there and went over to temporary lodging and walked in the office, and I said, "Can I get the room for Gunnery Sergeant Peavy?" And they're like, "We can't just give you his room, but we can let him know, you want to give a name and all that." He came out, and he looked at me, he goes, "Sergeant McNany," he goes, "do you need something?" And I looked at him and I said, "Well, Gunny," I said, "I just wanted to tell you." And I told him basically everything that I just said.
Yeah.
But I was like, "But I want to tell you how much I appreciate who you were." I learned a lot of good from him. I learned a lot of bad from him too. And I told him that, but he actually did teach me. And that was probably probably the biggest thing I got away from 29 Palms when you asked me that question, was that with him. And I met a lot of Marines out there, from Dan Connolly to Gunny Gray was the EBL when I first got there. Gunny Gray was, we'd walk into rehearsal with him, and he'd literally finally walk in, and, he wanted everybody there 15 minutes before rehearsal. Everybody be sitting there ready to go, and he'd walk in and be like, "The earth is brown, the sky is blue. Have a good day." And he'd just walk out. It was like, the hell just happened? It was just from his, and you knew the band hall in 29 Palms where it was over off of Tanks Battalion.
Yeah.
But the band halls used to be on the other side over by the front gate by the main road. It was two steel Quonset huts. One Quonset hut was, it's the round, like, go over pile.
Yeah.
Quonset huts was where, the band office, the EBL, and the changing rooms and all that, all that stuff where the duty was at. Then you walked across a little, basically it was like a little tiny parking lot. Then you walked into the other one, and that was a rehearsal hall, and that was it.
Wow.
And he would walk from, if it was a nice day, he'd come walking across, and I was like, everybody would joke. He'd be like, looking up at the sky. And if it was nice outside, he'd walk in and be like, the earth is gray, the sky is blue, grass is green. He'd just turn around and walk out. I was like, woohoo!
I was mistaken a while ago. It's actually Gray is the one that's up here at the school. Who's
TV
lives close to here though. He lives in that area somewhere, and he had stopped by several times.
But no, he had an impact on me. I mean, like I said, there was good and bad. It's just like anything. Yeah. But it was that demand that don't accept good enough is good enough.
Right.
You can be better than what you are, and that's what he insisted, and that's what he demanded.
Yeah.
But, in his time frame, then of course, at the time, Staff Sergeant Boatwright, and
yeah,
the Boatwrights got there, and we had Master Sergeant Staff, who was a drum major, and then Boatwrights got there. I had learned a lot from Matt, which I think you and I had talked about.
Yeah,
he is the master planner, I don't know how else, logistician when it comes to everything and anything. And if you think you're going to trick them, there ain't no.
Yeah.
There's no tricking them. Yeah.
I learned that the hard way.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That is what human being that knew what you knew, and he knew it before you knew it, and he was waiting to see how long it took you to actually do something with what you knew at that point. So
yeah, it was always a chess game. It was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah.
I learned a lot though. I learned a heck of a lot.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
All right. So at this point, I think we'll take a break. This will be into part one, and then we'll go into part two because I want to hear the rest of the story as well. But we're hitting about that hour mark now, so we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. It looked like our Wi-Fi managed to make it the rest of the way through, so
absolutely
that's positive. Yeah. That's positive. Maybe we have it figured out. I don't know. But thanks again for coming on and sharing part one of your story. To all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, you need help, don't hesitate to reach out for some help. The VA has some wonderful things going on. If you dial 988 and press option 1, again, that's 988, press option 1, they'll be able to put you in contact with somebody that's going to help you out. And if you don't want to make a phone call, you'd rather text, you can always text 838-255. Again, that's 838-255. And then if you don't want to do that, you're a lot younger, you like chatting online or something like that, you always go to veteranscrisisline.net. And you can always click that chat icon. Same type of thing. Somebody's going to be there and they're going to help you through whatever it is that's going on. But one veteran life lost is one too many. So please go get some help. I know I feel that way. I know Mike feels that way. I know everybody, all the other veterans feel that way. So please reach out for some help. All right, Mike, thanks again. And to all the listeners out there, stay motivated, change your socks.